Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on how you are watching this today. If you go to our main page, you will see a couple ways to get to the fallacy. So you could click on this, but to be honest with you, I'd prefer if you go straight to the modules because the modules are going to show you how I have them set up per week. So that way you're not running through every single one in one time. I have you like about 2 or 3 per week. So this week we're going to be covering false analogy, equivocation, and begging the question. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So false analogy occurs when you compare two things that are not really alike. For example, anti-smoking laws won't work because they are just like prohibition laws of the 1920s. Okay, so the problem with that, obviously, is that someone is arguing that there should not be anti-smoking laws because prohibition laws didn't work. Well, they're two totally, completely things. Maybe the key term here is laws. They're trying to think that they are the same, but you cannot compare the two because they are not alike. So let's start with Dilbert here. All right, so you'll see a lot of my fallacies include either memes or comic strips. So let's start here. First is Dilbert. We can't start designing the product until someone tells us what features it should have. And his boss says, it's like saying you can't play on the beach unless you know how many grains of sand there are. I don't think it's very much like that. Analogy, please. Come with me. Are you taking me to jail for making a bad analogy? The analogy, please. Don't use a real jail. We use something similar. You will be here with this beautiful woman. Really? That's not so bad. She's the one being punished. Your necktie is like Hitler at an ice rink. There's absolutely no relation to any of these things at all. So you might see a lot of times, especially online right now, people are making a lot of arguments where one thing, they're trying to compare it to another in some way, shape, or form, and it just does not work that way. So I could give you some examples, but I don't want to get too far into it. But you can imagine there's quite a few out there right now. So first we also have here feminazi, because wanting your gender to be treated like human beings is like invading Poland. What? What? That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, this is very, how do I say this? Doesn't work. It doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. If you're trying to imagine it and put it together and it doesn't work that way, that's because this is a very terrible, a very terrible analogy. We like to call that a false analogy. Again, comparing two things that are not really alike. And so you may not remember the name false analogy, but you definitely will recognize it when you see it, when people are trying to connect a necktie being something like Hitler at an ice rink. That doesn't work. Okay. All right, so we're going to go now to equivocation. Equivocation occurs when you shift the meaning of a key term in the middle of an argument to make your conclusion appear to follow logically from your premise. So, for example, in the realm of human experience, we all find ourselves presented with difficult choices to make. It is then a very human experience to make the mistake that my client did. No. Okay, yes, all people make mistakes, absolutely, but your client just murdered his whole family. I don't think that's a part of the human experience, okay? Especially making some difficult choices. So anyway, that is an equivocation. Again, it's when you try and shift the meaning of a key term in the middle of your work just so that you can justify your statement. Okay, so let's give you an example here. So this particular character here in our first line is trying to justify fizzy drinks. Okay, so fizzy drinks may contain calories. Calories are energy. Energetic people are healthy. Therefore, fizzy drinks are healthy drinks. What? How does that make any sense? So he went from A to Z, and he had a couple things in between, but none of them connect. Absolutely none of them. So, okay, so hopefully you can see that through this little comic strip. All right, so back to Dilbert. I'm planning to open a gambling casino for people who have extraordinary bad luck. How can you tell who has extraordinary bad luck? They would be the ones that go to my casino. Okay, so these do not justify each other. Just because someone goes into this gentleman's casino does not mean they have extraordinary bad luck. But the assumption he is making here is those who do go to his casino have extraordinary bad luck. It doesn't work that way. So, all right. Unless he's got something else going on in this gambling casino. But anyway. All right. So here is another one. Sometimes people use respect to mean treating someone like a person. And sometimes they use respect to mean treating someone like an authority. And sometimes people who are used to being treated like an authority say, if you won't respect me, I won't respect you. And they mean, if you won't treat me like an authority, I won't treat you like a person. And they think they are being fair, but they aren't. And that's not okay. All right. So you can see how they have these two being treating someone like a person versus treating someone like an authority. And they're trying to put a connection there. So, alrighty, that is equivocation. And now we're going to jump on ahead to begging the question. All right, so begging the question results when you present a debatable question as if it were a fact, usually buried within a larger argument. So, a statement would be, an immoral book such as Huckleberry Finn must be removed from our school library because it will corrupt young minds. The term immoral here is represented as if it was an established fact, right? So they're saying an immoral book such as Huckleberry Finn. They're making a statement to say that Huckleberry Finn has been established as an immoral book, which it has not been. So, that being the case, they want it terminated. But the issue here is that using immoral as if it's established as a fact to which it is not. Okay? So, we have a gentleman. He looks like he has met up with a guru somewhere up on a hill. And the guy says, you mean I do the hokey pokey and I turn myself around and that's what it's all about? So get the joke here, right? So he's coming up to this guru to find out, right? What is it all about? And the guy says, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. You'll figure it out. Okay? So obviously the statement right there is they're making a joke on the word here. Okay, so here we got a little meme. Aren't you thankful? I swear this is stuff my parents post. Aren't you thankful that your childhood happened before technology took over? Okay, so the assumption is that childhoods before technology were better than childhoods with technology. So they're trying to establish a fact that is not a fact, that I would just say we have not established that childhoods before technology are better than childhoods with technology. They are different, but they are not something you could compare to by assuming one is better than the other. Because again, we're making an assumption there. All right, now we have Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, and they're all hanging out. Winnie the Pooh says, the map says we start at the big oak tree. I'm so excited. Then we walk 12 steps this way and 6 steps that way until we come to the gorse bush. Oh boy, there it is. I'm sorry for my voices, guys. This is where the map says the pirates buried their treasure. I don't see it. Are you sure it's over here in the right place, Pooh? Of course I'm sure, Piglet. I made up the map, didn't I? Aye. All right. So he's saying that because the map says this, he's making it that the map itself is factual and that the map will tell them where the treasure is. But the irony is that he made the map. Get it? Okay. All right. Jokes aren't funny. We have to explain it. All right. And here's a fun little one. All right. And this is from Senator Chris McDaniel. So a group of unhappy liberal women marched in Washington, D.C. We shouldn't be surprised. Almost all liberal women are unhappy. Perhaps there's some correlation. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a different argument for a different day. Nevertheless, I'm fascinated to see them exercise their First Amendment rights, however objectionable the message. But I do have a question. If they can afford those piercing tattoos, body painting signs, and plane tickets, then why do they want us to pay for their birth control? Okay, first off, this is a very stereotypical analysis of what women who want reproductive rights look like. So there's that. So it's an incredibly stereotypical, fallacious, terrible thing to say, but whatever. And then he's trying to compare the fact that they can afford these things, but they can't afford birth control. But that's not the argument they are trying to make. They are trying to argue for reproductive rights, right? And that includes birth control. It's not about wanting, quote unquote, wanting us to pay for the birth control. That's not the argument they are trying to make. But that's what he's trying to turn it around because he's using that word afford, right? You know, they can afford all these piercings, but they can't afford birth control. That's a very fallacious argument. We're not even on the same page. There's a lot about this argument, this statement that we can argue. we're not going to go down that road. So anyway, this is just kind of like how you can see, you can pick out every little thing within these statements where you could argue and go, first of all, let's just kind of break this down. Let me tell you how these things are wrong. Also, we got this, almost all liberal women are unhappy. This statement, this overarching, one assumes the whole kind of statement. And then we might have to ask, well, why might that be the case, right? So there's all these little tiny things within these that when you start taking this class, you can pick these things out really well and go, oh, well, that's why that's wrong. It's like sometimes you can feel it and like, man, I can't wrap my brain around this. Well, that's why. So anyway, so these are just a couple of the fallacies. You can go ahead and check them out and enjoy them for yourself. And if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. But until then, I will see you at the next one.